Hey everybody, I hope you all are doing well and welcome back to Michael's Matters. And in case you are one of the millions of people who are going to be retiring in this year, today we are going to be going over the top 5 tax-friendly places to retire in the United States for 2024. And the good news is they are actually pretty good places. They're not in the middle of nowhere where no one wants to live. Well, actually, you know what? Living in the middle of nowhere where no one wants to live doesn't sound that bad. Like that guy in the 70s, Dick Pronicki, where he built like a cabin in Alaska and videotaped it. Super cool. Either way, before we get to these videos, if you find them interesting, if you find them helpful, or hey, if you at least find them useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe because it really does help the channel to grow and we are so thankful for that. But also because you can get updates when our newest and most informative videos become available. All right, now, let's get down to the video. For these videos, we're going to look at a couple of criteria for what makes a state tax friendly. We're going to look at things like median property taxes, sales taxes, if the state has an estate or inheritance tax, and if there are any specific state kind of tax quirks that could add or detract from their tax friendliness specifically for retirees. Also, we're going to start with the least friendly tax states for retirees and move our way up there to the most friendly tax states for retirees. All right, so first up today, and really going to be America's go-to state for retirement, one of the most popular, which is not always the same as the best, at least with regards to tax friendliness, is going to be the state of Florida. Now, one great thing about Florida is despite having an average of 248 sunny days in cities like Miami, there is not a formal sunshine tax, at least not directly. Florida has an overall 6% statewide sales tax, but at the local level, they can add as much as 2% on top of that. And that makes the overall combined average state and local tax come out to 7.2%. So that is not great, but it's still better than, most of the other states in the union. Another above average tax friendly aspect of Florida is the fact that the average effective property sales tax is only at 0.86%. In addition to that, they have something called a homestead exemption, which allows residents who are specifically 65 years old or older to exempt anywhere from $50,000 up to the total assessed value of their property if they have lived in that property for more than 25 years and if the property is under $250,000. Lastly, for Florida, as far as retirement tax friendly bona fides, as a state, it does not have either inheritance tax or an estate tax. So all in all, pretty good, fun, and less taxes than most states. What else could you really want, right? All right, next up on our list, so this would be the number 4 most friendly tax state to retire to, is the Silver State. That's right, it's Nevada. And maybe it's hard to see if you're driving down the center of the strip next to the Flamingo, but once you get off the strip and into the rest of the state, it really does have a pretty easygoing and enjoyable vibe to it, except for when you get that air conditioning bill, huh? That aside, the biggest advantage to Nevada is that it's one of the only states in the country that actually doesn't have any state income tax at all. That is for personal income. But despite that, they do still need to get some money coming in to keep the buses running on time, even if those double deckers have dancing showgirls on the side. So they do have a pretty heavy sales tax that is composed of a 6.85% sales tax from the state, with counties adding up to as much as 1.38% and more. And that averages out to a state and local tax rate when it's all put together of 8.23%. So it's kind of a lot. Furthermore, even with the most recent influx of folks from high tax states like California, Nevada has a really low medium property tax rate at 0.59% of a home's assessed value. And also it doesn't have either an estate tax or an inheritance tax. So that is Nevada. I think it's a pretty good place. I mean, I would say I would even consider retiring there if I ever get that far and they still don't have the taxes by the time I get there. So that is Nevada, number 4. Next up is the number 3 state, which is one that I would not have ever thought of. But if you are into nature and rivers and rocks and trees and birds and things, as the song from America goes, oh, and having a state that is increasingly friendly to retirees as far as tax goes, then the next state on this list, Wyoming, could be for you. So just in case you weren't as clear on geography like me, Wyoming is a state that is directly above Colorado and Utah, which means you get the Rockies, you get the pine trees, but you also don't have all the, let's call it the politics of Colorado. And along with that comes a state that is another of the 9 states in the US that do not have a state income tax. And the actual state sales tax is pretty low at 4% statewide, with additional average local tax of 1.36% added on. So combined, that averages out to 5.36%, which is actually really quite good. Additionally, things like food and prescription drugs are going to be exempt from state taxes, so that's also good as well. With regards to property taxes, one of the lowest in the nation, with the median property tax rate at 0.56% of an assessed home value. And for residents who are over the age of 62 and have lived there for 10 years and have property that sits on less than 40 acres of land, they are actually able to delay payments of up to 50% of their property tax owed on the principal residence. Lastly, as is common for states this high up on the list, there is neither an inheritance or an estate tax or a death tax in Wyoming. So I feel like Wyoming is a very low-key, great state to retire to if you'd rather spend your time in the fresh air and dodging falling pine cones as you walk through the forest than, you know, the hustle and bustle of like a Miami Beach or a San Francisco or New York or someplace like that. And then lastly, I guess it's really not a detractor at all, but when they do those election conventions, if you're in Wyoming, you're probably going to be the last state to do the voting for the electoral ones. Do they do it in alphabetical orders? I think they do. All right, as we get to these last two states on the list, so number 2 and number 1, not only are they both in the South, well, I mean, I guess one is in the South and then one is really in the South, but they also have some extraordinarily friendly tax policies, especially when it comes to retirees. The next one on this list specifically is going to be the state of Tennessee. And the thing that makes Tennessee so tax friendly is not so much that they have novel ways of taxing folks, but more of the fact that the cost of living is so low that the taxes that they do have, also in real dollars and cents, don't end up costing that much. And on top of that, they have very low taxes on things that cost the most, like property. Tennessee has one of the lowest median property taxes in the country at 0.66%, which is well below the national average. Also, like I said, when it comes to actual dollars, the average annual property tax paid in the state are less than $1,300 a year. Furthermore, they have a very generous property tax relief program that is specifically for residents who are over the age of 65 years old, and they could even potentially have their tax assessments frozen if they can meet specific criteria so that the taxes on their property stop going up for the remainder of the time that they are in that property. So that is all good stuff, but the downside is, if we are looking just purely at percentages, is that Tennessee sales tax is pretty high at 7% for the state sales tax, an additional 2.75% for local tax that when combined come out with an average of 9.55%. Whew, that's spicy. But again, keep in mind, you know, the other costs are quite low, and also food costs and all those kind of daily costs are still pretty low. So 9.55% is a lot percentage-wise, but dollars and cents is not that high. And then lastly, and almost as a prerequisite to get this far on the list, Tennessee does not have either an estate tax or an inheritance tax. All right, here we go. And last up on this list, and I guess really for the number one, the mostest tax-friendly state for retirees in 2024. And I just remember being so proud of being able to spell it as a kid. MISSISSIPPI is Mississippi. So Mississippi is really not even one of the top 10 states I would have ever guessed would have the friendliest tax policies. But one thing to consider is that first, at this point, obviously it doesn't have an inheritance tax or a estate tax. There'd be no way it get this high if it did. That is a par for the course. And additionally, it doesn't have a tax on things like Social Security income. It doesn't tax pensions or any 401k distributions at the state level. But again, it's not all alligators and lollipops as far as taxes go in Mississippi, because they do have an income tax that is at 5%, but it will move down to 4% by 2026. It's going to keep stepping down year after year. And they have a relatively high state sales tax at 7%, but most of the local municipalities, they don't really add anything on top of that, which means that the average of the local and the state sales tax put together is only 7.07%. But let's talk about property tax, because it has a property tax that is well below the national average at 0.67% of assessed value. And keep in mind, the cost in the housing is the point where the median tax bill, so the tax bill that the average person in Mississippi pays every year, is below $1,052 a year. So that is quite good. One of the combined reasons that makes Mississippi the #1 most tax-friendly state for retirees in 2024. So there you have it, the top 5 most tax-friendly states for retirees in 2024. And really, I like the fact that the top 5 places to retire to in 2024, none of them are in Pennsylvania. Nothing against Pennsylvania, it's just that some of the lists for 2024 for best places to live, the top 10 are in Pennsylvania, and I like to have a little bit of state diversity. All right, so that's it for today's Michael's Matters, and I really hope that you enjoyed these videos. And if you did, if you find them interesting, if you find them helpful, or hey, if you at least find them useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe, because they really do help the channel to grow, and we are growing, thank you. But also because you get updates when our newest and most informative videos become available. So for Michael's Matters, I'm Michael, hoping that you take care of yourself, take care of others, and have a happy, healthy day.